Namaste, Shri Kavindra Rishiji, and to the Yoga Brotherhood who have joined us live on the Rishivatika YouTube channel. I am Venkat Raghavan, Director, International Institute of Vedic Sciences, IAVS, and the host for this session. Let us start with a prayer as is our tradition. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jnananandamayam Devam Nirmalaspatikakrutim Adharam Sarvavidhyanam Ayagrivam Welcome to Dr. Vedavyas Memorial Online Lecture Series being conducted by International Institute of Vedic Sciences, Rishivatika, and promoted by Vedavyasa Bharati Trust, USCEFI, and Yoga Brotherhood of America with the blessings of our Poojya Guruji, Dr. Vedavyas. Today, we are privileged to have Shri Kavindra Rishi Jeffrey Armstrong to speak on Ayurveda, Jyotisha, and Mantra Shastra, an integrated Vedic science, as the 83rd talk in the online lecture series. I would like to introduce Poojya Guruji Dr. Vedavyas. Dr. Vedavyas was born on 13th August 1934 in a family of traditional Vedic scholars or Acharya Purushas for 7 generations and is an author of 100 plus books in English and Telugu languages. Initiated into yoga, Gayatri Mantra, Vedas, and Upanishads at the age of 7 years, mastered in Vedic wisdom, including astrology, Mantra Shastra, and yoga. He discovered a rare copper plate inscription of the Mahabharata king Janmejaya dating to 3065 BC, followed by others of the same kind. The date of Mahabharata war was fixed in September 3138 BC in his doctoral research on astronomical dating of Mahabharata war. He was awarded PhD in Sanskrit for this discovery. Dr. Vedavyas also discovered the last verses of Bhagavad Gita, 45 extra slokas found in a rare palm leaf manuscript lost for over 2000 years. He toured to the US and lectured at Harvard and United Nations between 1985 to 87, and also addressed the Parliament of World Religions in 1993, exactly 100 years after Swami Vivekananda. With this, I would like to introduce our guest speaker of the day, Shri Kavindra Rishi, founder of the Vedic Academy of Science and Arts. He is an award-winning author of numerous books on Vedic knowledge, including Spiritual Teachings of the Avatar, Life Without Fear, Karma, a Guide to Cause and Effect, God, Goddesses, the Astrologer, and the recent book, The Bhagavad Gita Comes Live. Kavindra Rishiji is an Ayurvedic astrologer, philosopher, practitioner, and teacher of the Vedas for over 40 years with degrees in psychology, history, and comparative religion and literature. He also had a successful career as an executive in the Silicon Valley and as corporate speaker for Fortune 500 companies before turning to teaching the philosophy and lifestyle of yoga full-time. He lives in Vancouver, Canada. With this introduction, I now request Shri Kavindra Rishi to deliver today's talk. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, and pranams, dandavat pranams to everyone for this wonderful enterprise that you're engaged in. It's truly an honor to participate. And as you suggested, it is the fact that we must begin honoring the great rishis and gurus and sadhus and acharyas who have come before us. So for me, having come from outside into, it's very true when I say, Omagyana timirandasya ganangana salakaya chakshur unmilitam gena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born blind in the darkest tamas in Western civilization and entirely devoid of any of the true Vedic teachings and wisdom. And after colonization stole everything that was not nailed down, the great gurus of Bharat came to the West and said, wait, you forgot the crown jewels. And they brought the Veda. And I was fortunate enough to receive it, to have a guru of Vedanta, a guru of Sanskritam, who had memorized the Ashtadhyayi of Panini and spoke Sanskrit in his home as a child. I cannot hold a candle to him, but from him I learned the true essence. Then I studied Jyotish with a professor of Jyotish from Bharat, and he had me chant 900,000 planetary mantras to see if I was qualified. I spent 5 years as a brahmachari in ashrams, living the life of a brahmachari. And so this is my culture of choice. And coming in as I have from the outside with these perspectives of Vedanta, of Sanskritam, of Jyotish as a kind of integrator of this knowledge, bringing it to the rest of the world, is my entire life and dharma at this point. So thank you very much. It's good to be here. And I believe today we're going to be speaking on 3 very important and interrelated subjects. And that is the relationship between something that is assumed in this conversation, but I'll begin by saying it. Dehinosmin yata dehe komaram yovanam jara, tata dehantaras praptir, dhiras tatra namuyate. As the Bhagavad Gita and all the Vedic Shastra tells us, we are the Atma. We are Atmas. We are the Jiva Atmas who came on this amazing journey into the realms of Prakriti from our original home in Brahman. So we are immortal, we are indestructible, we are Sat, we are Chit, we are Ananda, and to many Vigraha as well. But we are beings of a Brahman nature. And this is the missing worldview, the missing perspective, the missing paradigm that Western civilization has not yet achieved. And so, coming from it, I can say to you that everyone who believes in only one lifetime and does not understand that they are on an incredible journey, and that incredible journey is over many, many millions of lifetimes of learning and growing in what I call not just the universe, but the university. We came here by choice. We did not come here because of some ill deeds, or we are not here in the bad graces of the place from which we've come. We are here as divine adventurers. And this Namaste culture of Bharat is the culture that sees the Atma in every living entity and honors them accordingly and constantly reminds one another of this truth. Na, ma, te. Not me, but you, all of us. So this culture of Dharma has led me to a particular point. Not only am I transposing and bringing the Sanskrit knowledge of the Vedas into the civilizations that are deficient in those vitamins, but I'm giving 2 perspectives. One is the grand perspective of us coming here and getting mature to the point that we're ready to achieve moksha and go back from whence we have come. Secondly, on that journey, we are here moving through time and space by our free will, by creating cause and effect, the subject matter both of yoga and of Jyotish. So with this, I just want to remind everyone that Vedavyasa's father, Parashara Muni, is the author of the Parashara Hora, which is considered one of, if not the most canonical of the texts in the Vedic civilization on the subject of Jyotish. The first 15 verses of that text are most interesting. There's a warning, and the warning says, be careful with this subject of Jyotish. It is the eye of knowing, of the 6 Veda Angas. It is the eye. 4 of them are the different departments of Sanskritam, and 1 is the many yagyas and the rituals that are necessary for working in harmony with the laws of nature. The Jyotish is the eye of knowing. And so the first warning is, let me tell you a funny story. I lived in Hawaii for a while. I had a Chinese friend who was a trader and had interesting things from China that he was importing to Hawaii. One day we were talking and I said, you know, in the astrological book, the Parashara Aura, the first warning is, if you misuse this science of Jyotish, in your next life, you will be born blind. And he looked at me and he laughed and he said, oh, that's very funny, because in China, if someone born blind, we make them an astrologer. So further confirmation. The next is that this Jyotish, because it's the eye of knowledge, a particular responsibility comes with it to be honorable in the presentation of that knowledge. And then the verses begin with an explanation in a single verse by Parashara of the meaning of Jyotish. He says, Jivanam karma phalado graha rupi janardanaha. Jivanam, all of the Jiva Atmas who have come to visit the realm of Prakriti from Brahman with their volition of their own free choosing, who have come here on this adventure. Jivanam, through their actions, will propel themselves forward from life to life, from moment to moment. Jivanam karma phalado, the fruit of what they do. Graha rupi. The grahas, a very important word, meaning those who grab and hold on to and enforce cause and effect upon them. Jivanam karma phalado, the fruit of the karmas, follows the Jiva Atmas. Jivanam karma phalado graha rupi, and the final secret word, janardanaha. This is jana ardanaha. Janma ardana. Through the arduous process, the English word arduous comes from ardana, one of the 24th name of Vishnu. Jana ardana is that being, that form of Vishnu who guides the Jiva Atmas through their journey of learning in Prakriti by the process of cause and effect, by giving them this, it is their rupa, meaning the form, and form defines function. So the function of the grahas is to give the Jiva Atmas the result of their actions, created using their free will, acting on behalf of Vishnu, whose mission in this form, Jana Ardana, is to give the response to the action. so that the process of being here is a learning process for the Jiva Atmas. It is for that reason that I call the universe the university. This cosmos, this prakriti, this jagat in which we're residing is actually a university. But the devas and devis are the keeper of the campus, of the grounds. And the great rishis and gurus and acharyas, yad yad acharati shreshtas, tat tad eve terojanaha, sayat pramanam kurute, lokastad anuvartate, are the ones who by their personal example embody the highest truths and understanding, but we need a Sanskrit word for this. So I would like to propose that the Bhagavad Gita is very clear that we and the Veda, which has landed as sound vibration within the realm of Prakriti, brought down by the great acharyas, by the rishis, as the Vedas, and by the avatars who from time to time appear. Chapter 4, Bhagavad Gita, in the beginning I sent forth generations of men and devas and said unto them, be happy by the performance of this yajna. I taught this knowledge originally to Vivasvan, and he taught it to Vivasvata Manu, and the Manus are responsible for seeding a planet with the humans. And that the humans, though they are of Brahman nature, they forget. We forget. We are overtaken by the dark energy of Prakriti, by ahamkara. Our buddhi is blinded. Our manas takes over. Our 5-element body becomes defined as ourself, mistakenly. And this university in which we're learning, the Sanskrit vibrations of the most perfect language on our planet are actually, you could say, not fragments, but extensions of Brahman into the realm of Prakriti. And this is going to be the third component of our discussion. This is the Brahman nature of Sanskritam, of Vak. When I want to explain this to people who don't know Sanskrit but only speak English, I say, let me ask you a question. So where do you go if you want to find the truth of the meaning of words? And they say, dictionary. And I say, yes, Diksha-nary. It's your authority, yes? It's your guru, your Diksha. And then I say, but what if you study that dictionary and you learn all the words? What will you have? Oh, they say I say a big what? They say vocabulary. I'll have a big vocabulary. I say, yes, a vach-cabulary, vocabulary. So here's the secret. Sanskritam is the basis of most of the European languages. Russia is Rishya, where the rishis of India used to go to build ashrams. 60% or so of Russian is Sanskritam. Then there's the Scandinavians, that's Skanda, the son of Shiva, Kartikeya. And then there's Ireland, which is Aryan. And so it is that Sanskritam, is the invisible source of Latin, Greek, the many Romance languages in Europe, In addition, Latin became Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, but Sanskritam was the source of German. So I just want to tell you one other secret before we go on. The English word God, I'm sure you know it, but not as English because it's not English, it's Sanskrit. Except the Christians and the users of that word in English don't know this at all. It actually came in through German, a word Gutam. And Gutam, but into Dutch as Gut and English as God. But you know it as Brahmarpanam, Brahma Agna, Brahma Havir, Brahma Hutam. The Sanskrit Hutam, the smoke arising from the Vedic yajna, when the offering is placed into the mouth of Agni. That which the Christians call pagan idol worship. One of the words in that yajna, Hutam, went through German and Dutch and became the only single word for the Supreme Being in English as God. In fact, if I said to you, is God and Bhagavan the same? Are they a synonym? Do they mean exactly the same thing? If you know, you'd say no. The Vishnu Purana says Bhagavan, 6 Bhagas, and one who possesses them is the ultimate Supreme Being. But God is the Hutam. It's the smoke arising from a Vedic yajna. It's one of the bit player smaller names for Bhagavan. He doesn't say it's my name. He says it's also me. It's also Brahman. So what I'm trying to share with you at the beginning is this synthesis that is now necessary to overcome the misconceptions that colonizing created, the pollution of Vedic texts with English words, many of which originally come from Sanskrit, but no longer are connected in people's minds. This renaissance of Vedic knowledge, whom the gurus and rishis, starting with Vivekananda, brought to the West, this is now maturing. There are millions of yogis throughout the world, beginner yogis with white skin, and most of them female, 80%. This is a new historical moment and movement. So this knowledge of Bharat is migrating because the Atmas who were previously yogis volunteered to come to places that were not Vedic. That would be me. That would be many of us with the Caucasian background who have accepted the Vedic Vidya as our truth. So now what I'd like you to think next is that where I was going with the language is that the Sanskrit itself is actually pieces of luminous Brahman energy as the Akshar Brahman, which come down into our Jagat and are available for us to associate with. That association is the texts of the Veda, of the Itihas, of the Puran, and of course of the 4 primary Rig, Sama, Yajus, Atharva, the 108 Upanishads, the Vedanta Sutras that Vedavyas left behind. All of these are really pieces of gold, if you'd like, pieces of Brahman. Each one of them has the ability to illuminate us by associating with it. And this is the great secret of Sanskritam and the Vedic civilization that is going to lead us into the mantra part of the conversation. Because the mantras and the shlokas and the stutis, all of these Vedic riks, samans, the kirtans, the bhajans, The mantras are pieces of Brahman, and when we associate with them, our Brahman nature returns. Meanwhile, in each jagat, like the one we're in, the two principles are working. One is that cause and effect initiated by us is either with, in agreement with, the laws of nature, in that case dharmic, or in violation of the laws of nature, in which case adharmic. You could also say that if we act in harmony with the laws of the ritam, that all-important word, and ritam, did you know that the Sanskrit word ritam, the ri of ritam, of course, is the root of dharma, tri, the essential nature of a thing, which if you take it away, it is no longer itself. Then kri and karma, the chains of cause and effect that are the inevitable nature of how things are accomplished inside of the jagat, the karma that comes back to us. And our actions either violate the laws of the ritam or we cooperate. If we cooperate, we get punya. If we violate the laws of prakriti, the ritam, then we get pap. And if you have a lot of pap, then you get a lot of duk. In English, duk became put up your dukes if you want to have a fist fight. It means I'm going to give you pain. So pap gives duk. It's not sin, wrong word. It's pap and duk for not working with the ritam. And then for cooperating with the ritam, we get punya and suk, sugar. The English word sugar comes from suk. Shukra, the planet Venus, as it's called, the graha. So in a moment, we're going to start weaving all of these together. You know the word tantra, one of the meanings is to weave together. So all of these sciences rest on one single certainty, that we're the Atma, that we're on a journey of learning in the university, that so here's another word that I've invented for you, that the grahas are the UPS, universal parcel system. Whatever we create, acting within prakriti, through our actions that we initiate as individuals, have reactions that come with them. Those reactions mature over time as we go from body to body to body, from one lifetime to the next. We have behind us an accumulation of things. Think of it, we've ordered from UPS. We've ordered them from Amazon. They're queued up, waiting. The grahas are UPS, universal parcel system. As they're transiting, as they're moving, they go across what? Well, they not only cross space and the stars, the nakshatras and the rashis, but they also move inside of us, which is our rasi chakra, our yantra of birth. So as they move through the sky, they also move through us and release the delivery of parcels of cause and effect that we created in previous lives, and then download those to us. So now we understand there's us, the Jiva Atmas. 2 layers up from us, we're at level 8. We're at Bhu Loka. 2 levels up is Svargaloka. We're level 8, they're level 10. Devaloka, Deva and Devi Loka. That's where the ideals and where all of the principles of the Ritam are being brought into manifestation as the laws of nature. That is why in the Agnihotra Yajna, since nature has produced the food as the Devas and Devis, it's now given to us. So in the Gita, Krishna says, if you take those things, but you don't offer gratitude back, you're a thief, you're a kripana, you're a miser, you're a cheater. So if you watch what's happening now, we're being shown this entire circular process. And once we, Jiva Atmas, enter into Prakriti and start in a body, all of our cause and effect is automatic. The Veda says there's 8,400,000 species of beings, 400,000 humans. Once we become human, our actions drive the reaction forward, and through that, we learn. It's our learning process in the university. Now, in a moment, we're going to add Ayurveda in. Because to do that, we have to be in a vehicle. But first, I want to just do a side note on this process of many, many lifetimes. It's very important to understand that we're all students in a school system. It's actually kindergarten through PhD. And therefore, anyone that we meet is an Atma. Namaste to you as the Atma. But what grade they're in is the result of how long they've been learning, what their history has been, how sophisticated they were in learning in their buddhi before this body. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse 19, Bahunam Janmanamante, Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate, Vasudeva Sarvam Iti, Samahatma Sudurlabha. And now we hear the Mahatma word used. Bahunam Janmanamante, after many, many births, doing what? Pursuing Vedic Vidya and acting and learning through circumstances and through embodiment. At a certain point, they go from the undergraduate level to a higher level of knowing. They become seers. And with that drishti from the rishi, they see the higher beings, the ultimate realities. They begin to understand that they come from Brahman. And so they say, Aham Brahmasmi. I'm the Jiva Atma. I'm from Brahman. And as they go to the next stages, they're ready to start understanding that everyone we meet is not only an Atma, but they're in a particular grade level. So we call this in Sanskrit, adhikari. The guru's, one of the guru's responsibilities is to test the grade level of the person they're talking to and decide what are they ready for next. Are they 3rd grade, 4th grade, 10th grade, sophomore, junior, senior, master's, PhD? What are they next to learn? But that verse from the Gita took us to the PhD. It said, Bahunam Janmanamante, after many births, going through the school, going through the grades of learning, your adhikari becomes, you're ready to know Vasudeva Sarvam Iti. You're ready to reacquaint yourself with Paramatma, with Brahman, with Paramatma, with Bhagavan, with the various aspects of the ultimate reality. But you're also going to become sophisticated in the way you live on Matabhumi through the performance of yajna in a state of buddhi yoga, performing karma yoga, and in a state of bhakti yoga. Eventually, all of these will coalesce. So now I want to show you just what happened with Adhikari to show you the Sanskrit on into English example. So in Sanskritam, Adhikari, level of qualification for the next step of learning. When the Yoga Sutra says Atha Yoga Anushashanam, Atha doesn't mean now when you're ready. It means when a guru says you're ready to learn Ashtanga Yoga, then you're ready, you're Adhikari. Doesn't just mean now whenever I want. It might mean that in America now, but let's at least be glad that yoga is landing. But originally, you had to be Adhikari. So then Adhikari became the Greek edukari, which means what comes forth from inside the person, meaning their readiness, the wisdom they've accumulated in their previous births. Bahunam Jagannath. And that became the English word education. Now, sadly, this is why education is not Gurukula. There's no gurus in education. Education is piling information on top of the Atma, mostly so they can go get a job. But without even finding out their true nature and their qualification, and without finding out what kind of vehicle they're driving. This vehicle, this karana. As you well know, this 5-element body is called the karana, but this is the English word car, comes from that. This is our car, made of earth, water, fire, air, space, Agni, Prithvi, up, or Jal, Akash, Vayu, those 5. It has 10 senses, 5 active, 5 perceptive. In other words, the next thing we're going to learn in our Vedic learning is how to see that we're not the karana, nor the anta karana. Antar means in English inner. We're not the inner body of manas, buddhi, ahamkar, and we're not the 5 elements of earth, water, fire, air, space. We're not the dasendriyas, our 10 senses of perception and action. So if that's the case, all of those equipments, our daytime vehicle, which I like to call the lunch body, this 5-element body is the one made out of what you had for dinner and lunch, breakfast. This is the food body, anamoya. It's got pranamoya, another level where the life force is active. Then it goes to manamoya. Now we go from the karana to the antar karana, what I like to call in English the dream body. When you park your body on the bed at night and let it rest, but you go off and do things during the night, that's in your anta karana. That anta karana and the karana are the result of our previous life, and they're visible, the qualities they will exhibit are visible in our rasi chakra, in the yantra of our moment of birth, by showing where the 9 grahas were in the nakshatras, in the rashis, in the sky, with each other, in relation to each other. It's all a coded yantra that tells the Jyotishi what your karma is that will be delivered, which grahas are the strongest and are leading the way, which one you're going to embody and be the most like. This will lead to your varna. Varna is not caste, you know that. Varna is the 4 parts of the social body. The scholar is the head, the warrior is the arms and chest, the Vaishya, the businessman or the farmer, is the stomach, and the legs are the so-called Shudra. I like to call them professor, protector, producer, provider. Now, just like with your body, you don't say, I hate my feet and I love my hands. You don't want to shun one part of your body in favor of another. So in actual fact, you want all of your parts to work together cooperatively and successfully. That's the Varnas. It's not a caste system. Caste is Portuguese, and it means power inherited by birth. So if somebody ever accuses you as a member of the Vedic culture of having a caste system, please say to them, no, you have one. Yours is called casteism. You pass on money, land, wealth, power to your children, even if they're unqualified. It's a Portuguese word, casta. It's not Vedic, and certainly not the Varnas. But the Varnas lead us to the doshas and the gunas. Because there are 3 gunas. Things are created, they're maintained, and then they're recycled. So Shiva Durga, recycling. Vishnu Lakshmi, the balance of maintaining and having a healthy and abundant existence. And then Brahma and Saraswati, the creator, and his Shakti. So this is Shakti and Shaktiman. So now we're learning the scientific terminology for how embodiment takes place. And this is going to take us into the territory of Ayurveda. Because Ayurveda is where the karana, the tires hit the pavement. In fact, if you want a simple way to think of this, think of Ayurveda as the well-being system. Unlike allopathic medicine, it doesn't wait for an emergency to occur because you have a troublesome lifestyle, because you're eating the wrong things or doing the wrong things. Ayurveda helps you to have a lifestyle that's correct for the particular karana that you received. So they work together with the Jyotishi. But the Jyotishi is the psychologist, if you will. They look at your anta karana and its relationship to the karana from the inside to the yantra of the Rasi chakra. This is described in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, toward the end, when Bhagavan says, I am in the heart of all living beings. So now he's explaining, they're also there. The Jiva Atma is there, I'm also there. And they are riding on a device. They're attached to a yantra, and the device is moving in circles, otherwise known as samsara. It's the merry-go-round. They're attached to the horse, and it's going up and down, and they can't get off. And the Rasi Chakra, the horoscope seen from Jyotish, is the description of the animal they're riding. Did you know that the word in English is zodiac, coming out of the Greeks, is zoo? It's not zoo, it's zoo. It's the circle of animals. And that's why many of the signs have human names or animal names. Leo, the lion, Vrishab, Singha, the lion, Vrishchik, Scorpio, the scorpion. So we have a zoo, and our dasendriyas are like the horses pulling a chariot. This is why when a child is in a store running all over the place, you say, hold your horses here, young man or young lady. Are you starting to see it? We're on a merry-go-round, the verse says, and we're attached to it. That's samsara. And our attachments are yogas, chit, vritti, nirodha. The twisting of the orbits of the planets, the twisting of everything over cyclic time, The cycles of birth and rebirth and death and living are all creating twistedness in us. And what do we call our DNA? Isn't it a twisted double helix? Isn't that the depiction of the Kundalini? The three parts of it, Shushumna, Ida, Pingala. This scientific discussion is so that we learn to see ourselves as the Atma, to see our Karana, our food body, and learn what to feed it, learn the categories of how it exists, learn whether it's Vata, air and Akash, Pitta, fire, Kapha, water and earth, and then to learn, so what are the best foods for it? Which means there's a different diet for everybody. As the famous song says, everybody gets a body sometime. Actually, all the time. Once you get in the cycle, you keep getting one. But if you don't understand it, you feed it anything. It'd be like in your car. If you put water in the gas tank, or you put kerosene instead of gasoline, it would get, the car would break down. So what we're seeing in the world right now, in Western civilization, is a terrible diet made of junk food often, with substances that are toxic. Nobody knows what's the correct fuel for their body or the correct herbs. And they don't look at the seasons, because the seasons create a context of temperature. They don't know how their body will respond to heat or cold. And what they also don't understand is what the grahas are delivering in terms of their past karma and when. So this entire system of classification is the science of living. And as Sri Ravi Shankar in his movement wisely chose that name for what he was teaching, the art of living. Art is from the Sanskrit artha. Yes, the art of living. The Vedic civilization sees the Atma, sees the Antakarana, the dream body, subtle body. That's the one we go from life to life in. So it's just like going to sleep and not waking up. As the Isu Upanishad says, Vayur Anilam Amritam, Atedam Bhashmantam Sariram, Om Krato Smara Kritam Smara, Krato Smara Kritam Smara. It says, when my body breaks down finally, they're going to burn it and make it into ashes. It's going to be very chaotic. So at that time, O Paramatma, O Bhagavan, please remember me the way I remembered you while I was alive. Now we're adding another piece to the puzzle. And that is, if we have these two vehicles, the Karna for one lifetime, but it's got very specific requirements for fuel, what it should eat, how it should live. And now here's another big secret: who you should marry. Because you're tying two vehicles together, yes? So what if you tie a Jeep to a sports car? A four-wheel drive to a sports car, is that good marriage? No. This one wants to go off-road. This one will get broken if they go off-road. This one wants to go to the racetrack or to sport about on the country roads. So they're not compatible. So human compatibility is one of the sciences of Jyotish. Being wise in living in the particular karana that you have, giving it the right fuels at the right time of year under the right circumstances. Then, what are your intimate associations, and what things that are being delivered to both you and your children and your partner? Those are previous karmas, jivanam karma phalado. The grahas are delivering them on a timetable, UPS, universal parcel system. So it's starting to come together. But the mantras, eko mantras, tasyam, namani, yani, karma, Payekam, Tasya Devasya Seva. There is really only one mantra, and that is the name of the Supreme. And there is only one karma, and that is service to the devas and each other. So this informed lifestyle is the Vedic lifestyle of integration of all of these different interconnected processes together. About 24 years ago, my partner Sandy and I together crafted a book. She makes whatever book we do, like this beautiful Bhagavad Gita comes alive. She's responsible for it being beautiful and for it being edited and all those wonderful things. And I am the scholar in the project. Both of us came together 24 years ago to do what we're now doing. She's my Dharma Patni. So this embodiment in the context of Prakriti as the Atma, with the devas being the providers of the things that we require, and therefore that being a conversation. And then Brahman being where the Akshar Brahman, the Sanskrit, and all of its formularies as mantras, as shlokas, as bhajans and kirtans, but that effect of the Sanskrit as Brahman is what tips the scale from us just living within matter, whether it's by Ayurveda and Jyotish or by whatever means, but without a means of touching Brahman. So that's the knowledge that comes down. And the other part of it is the sound vibration of the mantras. Now, one more piece that's just become revealed in recent years. This book that I wrote with Sandy, I actually explained that by looking at the person's chart, it's the blueprint of their body type, of their Vata, Pitta, Kapha, Dosha, and their Guna, at least when they're born. So by looking at their chart as the blueprint, I can predict what the person's dosha is. If you're Pitta dosha, you have to have breakfast every day. If you're Kapha dosha, you can skip breakfast. If you're Vata dosha, you'll say it all depends. I'm Pitta dosha. I've eaten breakfast every day of my life and never wanted to skip it. Now I could predict that from the chart. Why? Because it's the blueprint. It says the doshas and the gunas. It'll say what the vehicle drives like. So this is a piece to just see that if you, technically, if you see someone's body type, you can also see their chart. A couple of years ago, I was at a cafe with my partner, and a fellow I didn't know came up to me and said, "You're Jeffrey Armstrong, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You're an astrologer, right? A Vedic astrologer?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Guess my sign. Tell me my sun, moon, and rising." And I can't always do this, but I looked at him and I said, "Well, let's see. You're very skinny and slender. You're not very well dressed. So you've got to have Vata, but it's not Libra because you don't have a strong Venus. And your social charm is not so great. You're kind of eccentric. So you're also smart. So it looks to me like your moon is in Gemini and your sun is in Aquarius, Mithun, and Kumbh. And I'm not sure about your rising sign, but it's not changing that much. So it's probably either Cancer or Virgo." He said, "It's Cancer." And the other two were right. This is the training of being a Jyotishi, because you're looking at the vehicle, so you're seeing the blueprint in your mind. Otherwise, you could look at the vehicle and imagine the blueprint, so you could look at the vehicle and guess the dosha just by the way it's built. So the kaphas are round and they tend to put on weight easily. They can skip breakfast and they sleep deeply. The vatas are angular and slender and skinny and nervous and high-strung, and they're very sensitive usually. And the pittas are muscular and strong and direct and forceful. So we wrote this book 24 years ago. And in between, the Genome Project happened. So listen carefully. This is deep science. And this is the next validation. Of course, because of the many great scientists in Bharati of Indian origin, so the project was carried out there. One of the things they asked themselves is, there must be a particular enzyme in every genetic combination in a body that is produced by that body through its genetic combinations. That enzyme would interact with medicines in a particular way. So it's probable, they thought, that every genetic body type, just from its genetics, would be compatible with or not compatible with a particular kind of medicine. They were mostly interested in cancer treatment and things like that, deep medical treatment, and they wanted the body to be receptive to the medicine. So they did a blind sample of people, a couple hundred people, and those people fell into 3 groups. You want to guess? Well, because they were in India, they saw it. The 3 groups were Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Had 3 different kinds of enzymes from the genetic combinations that make up Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And therefore, what they saw clearly was that the Ayurvedic medical body types, and the ones they knew less about in Jyotish perhaps, are actually provable at the genetic level. This means a skilled Jyotishi who knew Ayurveda and genetics could look at the horoscope, at the Rasi Chakra, and predict the genetics, including the body type. Or a geneticist who knew Ayurveda and Jyotish could look at the 3 types of enzymes coming from the DNA and the genome, and they could predict the Ayurvedic body type and the horoscope and the Rasi Chakra. Isn't that something? So these Vedic sciences are being validated, but Western civilization doesn't want to admit it because Western civilization is dominated by Christianity, and Christianity feels threatened by the Vedic knowing and Vedic knowledge and its antiquity, and the fact that it makes you think and doesn't just use blind faith. I'm not speaking badly of Christianity. I was born one, but it's not a philosophical tradition. It's a blind faith tradition. And so is Islam, and so is Judaism. Though the Judaic culture is more thoughtful, interested in law and thinking perhaps than the other 2. But this is why right now you're having so much resistance in having your culture accepted, why there's so much bad propaganda against it. Because modern science does not believe we're Atmas or in reincarnation. And Christianity does not, Islam does not, science does not, Judaism doesn't either, really, one lifetime. So I'd like you to really understand this. First, ours is a many lifetime, stay here until you graduate culture. Next, we're the Atma. We're a non-destructible particle. Then we have an inner body, Antakarana, and a Karana, 5-element body. And then we have Manas, thinking, feeling, willing, and memory. Buddhi, discernment, the ability to tell one thing from another for Samkhya Yoga. And then we have a Hamkara. Hamkara is not called false ego. A Hamkara is your I am when you identify yourself as Prakriti, matter. That's a Hamkara, misidentifying. So it's called ahamkara. I am matter. I am the car. But if you say aham brahmasmi, Jivera Svarupaya Nitya Krishna Das, I am the Atma and I'm from Brahman and I'm part of Bhagavan, that associating with matter doesn't co-opt your identity. And then, knowing that you're the Atma, you can work with your body type, you can see the gunas operating and trying to force you to do things that your senses like. You can understand the construction of your vehicle, its blueprint. If you're like myself, you can look at the blueprint level. I have enough training in Ayurveda that I can see the various doshas functioning, and I know a little bit about herbs and foods and what is useful. I'm not a prescribing Ayurvedic doctor, but I'm the psychologist. They're the doctor. And the Sushruta Samhita and the Charaka Samhita are way back into the antiquity, but way before Western civilization even thought to exist. And did you know that just at the time of supposed birth of Jesus, there were 150 ships a year sailing from India to Rome? Anyone ever tell you that? It's true. It's proven. In fact, there's a historical note in the Senate record of Rome that says we've got to stop spending all of our money on saris and luxuries from India for our wives. Some things never change. I love the saying that England dominated the world for 300 years with gunpowder, and that India took the world back over in 50 years with curry powder. But you know, I'm not saying cast cow and curry. What I'm saying is you have a vast library. We have a vast library. I've joined you. And we, with that vast library, and so if the Abrahamic religions are the people of a book, and if scientists are people who don't believe in anything and think you just have one life and it's random, then we, Vedics, are the people of a library. And we see the integration between our embodiment, the plants in nature, and this is why we believe in human agriculture, not agriculture with factories and poisons. Listen to the work of Vandana Shiva, a very important voice this time in history, telling us and warning us to go back toward an earth-centric Matabhumi culture. And speaking of Matabhumi, did you know that the word human comes from Bhumi? It does, bhu. First it's bhu, it's where you be. But human, they just drop the B. It happens all the time when you get a word from Sanskrit and move it into English. They drop some letters. So we're called human, and dirt is called humus, but it's all from bhumi. And we're not cooperating with Matabhumi, and Vandana Shiva can explain it to you better than I. But Ayurvedic physicians understand it. They cooperate with, get the right foods at the right time, the right season, the right spices, and the right herbs. They know your psychological characteristics of your body type. And we Jyotishis understand how all of that is connected to the grahas who are delivering the karma that we've created in the past on a schedule, UPS, Universal Parcel System. So the last thing is, Hari Haraya Namaha Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Gopala Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinatha Mahadanaha Mohan. These mantras are the treasures of Brahman in the storehouse of the Vedas, passed on by the rishis, the ones who heard the mantras and saw the truths that come from them. Veda means to see. That's why it gave us the English word video. Did you know that? Video. That's why Duk Tara gave us doctor, because Sanskrit is the mother of European languages, of Latin, of Greek, and especially of the rough and kind of confusing, chaotic English language. But mantra is the pure association with Brahman. All the rishis agree. So whether it's the shlokas of something from the Veda, or whether it's the special mantras, I wanted to say one for you, with you. I know you know it. But I feel obliged to point out also that the feminine divine is missing in Western civilization. And Christianity and Islam did not like her, so they destroyed all the temples and altars and places where she was being adored. And it was a great loss for our civilization. So one of my favorite mantras is the one that we observe twice a year. Prathamam Shailaputricha, Dvitiyam Brahmacharini, Tritiyam Chandraganteti, Kujmandechi Chaturtakam, Panchamam Skandamateti, Shashtam Katyayaniti Cha, Saptamam Kalaratriti, Navadurga Prakirtita, Uktanyetani Namani, Brahmanaiva Mahatmanaha. These are the missing vitamins in Western civilization. And whatever other contributions they've made, after all, everyone makes contributions to life, we want to honor that culture and thank it for that. So personally, I have friends from all the religions and all the cultures. That's different. But the cultures are still fighting against this antiquity, this grand vision of Brahman and Prakriti, and vast amounts of time, and a library of knowledge, and devas, divine beings who are the servants. Remember, they're running the campus. Someone's in the cafeteria at a college campus. Someone's cleaning the campus. Someone's producing everything. Someone's cleaning the buildings. These are the devas and devis. They've been misspoken of as idols and many gods in a despicable way, as if we're confused. We don't know Bhagavan from his many servants within matter. Just all avidya, ignorance, not truly understanding. So it is very important, I believe, at this time in history, for all the Vedic texts, what we've done with the Bhagavad Gita that is so unique, that hasn't happened before. It's called the Bhagavad Gita Comes Alive, a radical translation. What we did was we took out all the colonizing words: God, sin, religion, heaven, hell, any word that was property of Christianity. We took it out. Then we left about 100 Sanskrit words in that are necessary because there is no English equivalent for those Sanskrit words. For karma, for dharma, for so many. For Brahman, for Prakriti, all of them. So those we left in the verses. Then we used neutral English that doesn't distort the message. And we only translated the verses. So why is it so radical? Because my proposal to the entire Vedic community is it's time that I learn Sanskrit as well as your best pundits know it. And it's time they learned English as well as I, a pundit of English, know it. If we put our heads together, we can decolonize all the Vedic translations. We can learn to speak English correctly to explain ourselves to the world. And we can use the Sanskrit, the chunks of Brahman, and teach the mantras. And believe me, they're being passed around the world. Hundreds of millions of people are now using them as their way of being their true self, the Atma. Well, I think my time has elapsed. Bhagavan says when Arjuna sees his cosmic form in chapter 11, "Oh, who are you?" I'll end with this. Did you know that when Oppenheimer, the famous German atomic scientist, and the rest of the scientists were in New Mexico when the first nuclear bomb was exploded, Oppenheimer, who'd studied Sanskrit along with being German, quoted, "I am time, Kalohismin." Bhagavan said, when Arjun said, "Who are you who are devouring everything?" And Bhagavan said, "Oh, that's me, it's time." My friends, it is time for the Vedic community to learn to speak about themselves in English professionally and to pass on the truths of their culture through Sanskrit words that do not exist in English. And finally, to teach, sing, chant the great Vedic mantras, because this is the ultimate medicine. This is the cure to the worst disease, the misidentification of myself with ahamkara and matter, and being lost and confused, and forgetting to give honor and respect to all living entities. I'm so pleased to be with you today, and so honored that the Vedavyas Bharati Trust and the great Acharya of that, Gurudev Dr. Vedavyasa, would have me in such an illustrious gathering. So thank you very much. Pranams, pranams. And to the great Guru himself, Dandavat pranams. Thank you very much.
So thank you, sir, for this great enchanting talk. And I would like to take, with your kind permission, a few questions from the viewers. So first question from Sairaj Kiran. Sir, it is impressive to see your efforts to learn and impart the Vedic knowledge. What methods in your experience can be used to impart this knowledge to the broad audience of modern society?
Well, I did just give you a hint, but I'll quote also the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, who's one of my heroes. And he explains the activities of yoga in the second pada of the Yoga Sutras and in the first verse. And he says, Tapasya, Svadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhan, Kriya Yogaha. The three activities are, you must do tapasya. What you did yesterday doesn't help you today. Tapasya is a way of life. You should do a couple of hours of sadhana, chanting mantras and other practices and asana and pranayam and restorative work to bring yourself back to balance every morning. And then svadhyaya, you must do things that are true to who you are and be true to your swadharma. Find it and live it with integrity. And in my proposal, I think we should go from democracy to dharmocracy. I'd like to see us bring dharma to the entire world and act according to the laws of nature and go for the long game and make sure that everything here is there for future generations. And lastly, Ishvara Pranidhan, not ask for things, but introduce ourselves and express our gratitude to the many divines that are making our life possible. These three things are the secret to the Vedic yogic lifestyle.
That's a wonderful answer, sir. Thank you very much for that. There are a couple of questions from Shri Rajagopalan. How is the Ayurvedic astrology delimits the cause and effect of 5 elements of nature on Sthula and Sukshma Sharira of any individual? This is one question. And the second question, I would ask, I would do it after you respond to this question.
All right. There is an interconnected fabric that is behind everything. This is the true Tantra. Unfortunately, as the knowledge went across to English, many of the Sanskrit words got compromised. So now people in the everyday world think Tantra is sexuality. Rather, the word Tantra gives us all the words in English tension. And remember vrittis? Oh, vrittis became something called advertisements. You hear the vrit in advertisement? So just as these words have been warped and distorted, so the important thing to know is that life is a fabric that has been woven together by all of these subtle and more obvious energies. The more that we see the fabric of life, the more that we learn to weave and learn to see the different levels and departments that things are happening on, the more we can cooperate, number one. And secondly, the better we'll manage each other. Let me give you a very tangible example. In Jyotish, we have something called Sade Sati. You probably heard of it. It's the planet Shani is the very slow planet, the slowest visible planet. He takes 7.5 years to go across your moon, Chandra. The sign before, the sign during, and the sign after. Because the manas is associated with the moon planet, the thinking, feeling, willing, and memory faculties in humans are associated with their moon. Now, if you have children and they happen to go through Sati Sati when they're 8 years old, it's going to look like their mind is agitated, and they might be taken to an allopathic doctor who gives them Ritalin or some other drug that's not useful for them, instead of teaching them to chant mantras and giving them special physical and other therapies and food, instead of nurturing them and guiding them through Sati Sati, they're viewed as mentally unbalanced, and they're given dangerous drugs that unbalance them further. And this is going on constantly because we don't have drishti. We don't have the ability to see the big picture and see them as the Atma and see their Karana and their Antakarana and the Sukshma Sharira and the Stula Sharira and the karmas that are landing. And if you have a family and you have 3 children, you have 5 horoscopes, all receiving karma from their previous lives. If you've read the Mahabharata, and I know you have, one of my jokes is the most likely place for your enemy from a previous life to take birth is in your family. It's called the Pandavas and the Kauravas. So when you know these things, that extra knowing combined with the extra energy of Brahman from the Shastra and the mantra all act as medicines. And right now, our world is just confused, missing important vitamins, blundering across boundaries. And the Vedic civilization is a little shy still to talk about itself because it was terribly treated and colonized. It's because it's being spoken badly of in a myriad of ways. I'm sure that's why we, like myself and others like me, who were yogis in a previous life, volunteered to come back and be parachuted behind enemy lines in Caucasian bodies to look like Nick Nolte. I'll tell you a funny story. When I go to Bharati, I'll have an audience of 2,000 or 3,000 people, and I begin with the mantra to the earth from the Atharva Veda. Yasyam samudra bhuta sindurabo, yasyam bandam prishtaya sambhavu. And people go, what? Did Nick Nolte swallow a Hindu? How is this happening? It's happening. You are becoming westernized, meaning you can tolerate it without getting overwhelmed. We are being Vedicized. It is all now going to come together. And all the reasonable people who are hungry for knowledge are going to go to the Vedic library and listen to the Vedic culture. And the Vedic culture has so many things to offer about lifestyle. I'm working with some allopathic Indian doctors right now to bring Ayurvedic cooking into hospitals so that Ayurvedic doctors plan the menu and allopathic doctors handle the emergencies. So we are in a time of renaissance, my friends, and I think it's so exciting.
Thank you. And there is one more follow-up question around the same lines about what are the effects of individual grahas, planets, and their integrated radiated energy on natives, kartas, born during the well-established solar storm periods? So that's astrological question.
Yata Pinde Tata Brahmande, Rig Veda says. The big one is also in the little one. The little one is a miniature of the big one. So the grahas, as they move, graha means to grab or grasp. That's why it's not the same as the word planet. Planet means the wanderers, but the grahas are not wandering. They're on track. And each one of them represents a different strand or department of functionality in our being. And sometimes you'll hear it said that they're enemies of each other. That's not true, because they're all devas, but they have opposite functions. Those opposite functions are pushing and pulling on us all the time from two sources: from our birth, meaning our previous empowerment, and the grahas built into our body have created departments that are distorted, and so we're unbalanced in the way we're embodied. Then the planets, the grahas, are moving around us, and they're pushing and pulling on that pressure. And then the people with particular charts are repulsed by us or attracted to us. So this, if I could give you a simple example, when I talk to a client, I say, think of this. When the planet moves, it grabs you. It's always got you, but sometimes it grabs you in a very sensitive spot. It's crossing your manas, your moon. And it pulls on you. If you don't notice that that's the graha, you'll ask the question, what's wrong with me? You'll think you've gone crazy. If you have 3 planets, 3 grahas sitting on your rising sign when you're born, and now one of them starts to cross that, now you will think, I'm going crazy, instead of thinking the grahas are pushing and pulling me. With this great wisdom, we become participants in the cosmos rather than victims of the cosmos.
Great. Thank you very much on this clarification on the effect of grahas and how they work or function. We have another question from Purushottam Sistla ji. As per your deep understanding of Vedic sciences, could you please explain how mantras work? And could you also give an anecdote or two in your life which made you believe that the mantras work as they are supposed to be?
Oh my God, I'll tell you a great story. I come from a bhakti tradition which was very Vedantically oriented. You might have known A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. I spent 5 years in his ashrams, and then went on to study Sanskritam, and then went on to study Jyotish. So I've had many illustrious gurus in my time. But when he was first teaching in the United States, Prabhupada would teach very deep, famous bhakti mantras that were full of ras and full of a nectar and juice and deep emotions. And the music was emotional and reached into your heart and touched you deeply. So one day he decided to teach us a mantra, and there were about 500 of us in the temple room, big temple in New York. And I was often his protector outside his door. So in this case, I got to sit right in front of him on the floor. His Vyasa-san was just above me, about 2 feet away. And he handed out a piece of paper with a mantra about Krishna and Radha. And he started playing his kartals, and he went, Jaya Rad Hamad Hava. And when he did that, tears shot out of his eyes. He went into the typical characteristics of ecstatic bhakti, and his tears squirted all over my face. I was sitting in the path of Guru Kripa. And if you couldn't feel in your heart what was happening, you didn't have one. How do you know when you feel empathy for someone else? When Arjuna is upset, the word is vipathus. Vipathus means he feels their pain. It gives us the English word empathy. So the mantras are not just words. They're not just combinations of letters. When they're uttered properly by a proper acharya, they carry everything. They carry the ecstasy that came with them. They carry the ananda. They transport you. They fulfill your hunger for deep love and emotion. They cry on you. They bathe you in a nectar. Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalava. You feel the ras. And if you don't feel it, you've never been to Italy. When someone says, hey, paisano, it's so good to see you. You believe him, you feel it's so good to see you. The mantras get inside you and vibrate every part of your being with Brahman. They enlighten you, they awaken you, they heal you, and they restore the balance that was disturbed by the grahas or bad players or crazy humans or asuras. And when something restores you, when you've had a real medicine, it's like arguing that the good meal you just ate wasn't a good meal. No one can convince you. When you really taste those mantras, you become addicted. It becomes your new addiction, and you can never give it up. I have not given it up for 1 minute since 1969 when I first heard it. All day, all night. And I'm so grateful.
It's with this, I think with your experience of this story, I mean, it brings to the closure of this session, sir. We were very fortunate today and blessed to listen the voice of a Vedic Rishi, and the time just passed like a flash with this enchanting talk. On behalf of International Institute of Vedic Sciences, Rishivatika, thanks to Shri Kavindra Rishi from the bottom of my heart. And to recollect some of the quick quotes which are just ringing in my mind about the universe is a university, and we are the students from KG to PhD as Atmas, and also origin of some of the Sanskrit words to their English conversions, like God from Bhutam and Karana, and some of such examples, and also a great quote from Brihat Parasara Hora Shastram on the Jivatma and the Paramatma. So I would also like to quote from Poojya Guruji, Dr. Vedavyas, about Vedas are the synthesis of all the Shastras or sciences as we call today. So with this, I would like to conclude today's talk. And we would like to also thank all our viewers who have joined us live on this session. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe for the latest notifications of the future talks. Hari Om Tat Sat.
Hari Hari Om Tat Sat. Thank you so much for having me. I'm deeply honored and touched and so proud to be a part of this great Renaissance. The people of the library, I call us, the people of the library. Pranams, Dandavat Pranams.
Please stay on. We will continue.